There. Nope. Yeah, there's a couple coming in. Yep. One minute.
I want to compliment the street department on the great job they did in plowing this last week. It had to be tough.
Hey, Larry, did you get my message this morning?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 6:30. We'll start. We have quorum. John Flynn looks as though he stepped out of the room for a minute, but we have quorum. Will you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Phew.
Okay, we'll do a roll call of council. Councilmember Wozniak,
Here.
Flynn,
Here,
Fowler,
Here.
Burke,
here.
Willems,
Sure.
Snow. I don't see
Yes.
Jerry.
Somebody said yes for Jerry Snow.
I think that Larry said yes. That wasn't Jerry.
Yeah.
He's missing.
Okay,
We have quorum.
we have quorum. Okay. Next on the agenda is citizen input. We have 10 people who have joined us. Thank you for coming this evening. Does anyone wish to speak to council? You'll have 3 minutes. There's a hold up your hand function on the toolbar should be on the bottom of your screen.
There's one.
Okay.
Robin Grossbeck.
Robin Grossbeck, would you like to speak?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing public comment. I just want to reiterate that there are several of us living on Castleford Drive who support the Planning Commission's recommendation regarding the parcel at Trafalgar and Castleford. So we support the recommendation that just a portion of that land that is not in the floodplain be allowed to have a zoning change. And we have found the council and the Planning Commission's work on this to be thoughtful and careful. And we support your efforts and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All righty, I'll close the citizen input. Council reply, Robin, the commission actually rejected a different proposal and decided not to discuss the one that Council Member Fowler has brought forward. And that's the one that we'll be reading tonight as amended. But I think that's the one that you're referring to, where a portion of it is not in the floodplain, some 2¼ acres, and the balance is in P1. But when we come to that, I'm going to ask the council member to address it because he asked to do so at the work session for that very reason. Okay, let's go on to the approval of minutes for January 25th. That was the regular meeting. Mr. Wilms, it seems that you like to change the minutes again.
In answer to that, to that comment, I think the minutes should represent rather defamation, something that represents the view of the person who made it. It would be degrading to leave it as it is because I'm not against the depository board as it's suggested there. My point being, it is to my opposite. My objection clearly was that the clerk is not a voting member of the council and therefore not directly responsible to the electors. That was the thrust of my statement. And that's why I suggested that change. So it wasn't that I was against him being on there. In general, I think Wayne probably could do a good job. My point being, it's not reflective on that board to have people that are not directly responsible to the electors. That's my position. That's what I stated, and I think it should be in the minutes that way.
All right.
So I would move to amend the minutes for that.
I will tell you that he is actually responsible to the electors because he's in an elected position. But you're correct. That's exactly what you did say. Okay. Mr. Kelly, do we do them both or do we do them one at a time?
I would do them one at a time.
When we say do, there are two proposed changes to the minutes. So I would do them one at a time, but there needs to be a second to the amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Wilms to amend the minutes of the January 25th meeting as he has suggested. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Wayne, we'll go.
Before we vote on it, would you mind, Larry, just restating what it is you want the minutes to reflect?
It should be on the screen. I sent it to everyone, including the mayor. What it said before is that Mr. Wilms suggested that the city clerk not be on the depository board, period. That was part of the statement. The real statement was because the clerk is not a voting member of the council and is not directly responsible to the electors as we are.
I won't put
In
that
other
in
words,
because I disagree with that. I am elected as well, Larry. I'm just.
you are elected. You are elected, but not in the same capacity. You don't have voting rights on the council.
That's fine. I won't add that last portion to it or I'd be against it. You can put on that I'm not a voting member of the council and leave the
Yeah.
rest.
Okay, everybody hang on, okay? There's a motion to amend the minutes as reflected in the writing. Mr. Flynn has seconded that. So, I mean, Wayne, I understand your position, but you can't debate this. And so we need to keep the debate to the council. And Mayor, I don't know if there's further debate on that change of the minutes or we need to have a roll call on that one at this point.
Okay, Steve, did you have something to add?
I do. I would like to say if we could put a period after because the clerk is not a voting member of the council, period. And I know we have to vote on this one now, but I'd be more interested in supporting it if we can just put a period after council and strike the part that says and not directly responsible to electors because that's not accurate.
We would have to amend the amendment if the amendment passes.
I would agree to that friendly amendment to the motion.
Okay, well, does Mr. Flynn, Mayor, you need to inquire if Mr. Flynn will agree to that.
Well, I was seconding that because, he feels it doesn't accurately state what he said. And it seems to me that Larry's amended statement that's in writing is what he said. Doesn't make a difference if it's true or not. So I really don't care which one we do. I just thought he wanted to amend the minutes and I thought it wasn't unreasonable to amend them.
Okay, the question is,
I don't, well, I'm sorry. So are we going to continue discussion or
well,
we got the amendment now?
well, no, just a second.
Yeah.
So John seconded it. Are you okay with putting a period after the word council and striking the rest?
Yeah, I'm okay either way. I just think I think it doesn't really need to be changed because that's what he said. Doesn't make a difference whether it's true or not.
Okay. All right, so
Can
both,
can I say something here? I need to say this, and I don't intervene in your, but the minutes, the point of the minutes are to accurately reflect what happened at the meeting. It is not whether or not we agree with it now or to modify or make it sound better or change what we may have said before. So the point of the minutes is to accurately reflect what happened at the prior meeting. So with that in mind, I would just ask you to keep that in mind with any discussion about the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Well said. Mr. Fowler.
You know what? I apologize. I was essentially going to say what Jason just said. You know, the minutes are to reflect the discussion that occurred during the city council meeting. And, you know, the request or to amend the meetings to reflect that, I don't have a problem with it if that's what was said. And as far as, you know, anyone, I wouldn't take it personal that the verbiage, you know, wants to include what was accurately said, because that's the purpose of the meeting minutes. So I really don't have an issue with it.
Okay, anybody else? Steve, I can't hear you. You're muted.
That's fair enough. I understand that. If Mr. Williams, I guess you made the amendment, so you feel like this is what you said.
That is what I said.
Okay, then let's vote on it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, this roll call is on those for the amendment to the minutes. Wozniak,
No.
Flynn,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 4-1.
Okay, now there's a second change that you'd like as well, Larry, in item number 2.
What about my vote?
I did see Jerry's on here.
I was going to say Jerry showed up. I think, I don't know if he wants to vote on that or not.
Gary, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you wish to vote on that amendment?
Yes, I do. And my vote is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Larry, your second one, please.
The second one, as it's shown on the screen, Mr. Wilms stated his concern that value engineering will continue throughout the process, and value engineering by its very nature is literally done during the final plan and design document preparation phase, and that is exactly what I did say, but it stopped at this point.
Okay.
What he has here is not incorrect. It's just that it leaves off the important part, and it leaves off the important response by Chief Sims, and that is that a number of optional items in the bidding will allow them to select and achieve the best value options for the city. So there's two parts to that. I don't mean to put words in Chief Sims' mouth, but he did point that out after we had part of that discussion. So I would make a motion to amend the minutes for that portion of discussion on my part, and on Chief Sims' part, he's certainly welcome to object or change his part there, but he did say that.
Okay, is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah, question. Is this what was said? I think we're getting into some pretty tedious territory, but is the amended part what was said, or is it a clarification of what you wish you would have said?
No, all of that is what I said. It was a lot of things that were said in the discussion with the representative from the construction management company. And he said it was going to continue throughout the process, and that was not really true. And that's why I did say what is written there, but that's not the point. The point is that as I made in my discussion, it was not completed during the final design, plan, and prep stage. And as a result, it's rarely, if ever, possible to achieve savings after the bidding using change orders. And I did say all of that.
Fair enough. Look, guys, we haven't got all night to be,
Yeah.
doing this over bloody minutes. Okay,
Exactly. And may I say, Mayor, also, we have a lot of nuanced conversations. The minutes are not going to reflect every nuance of the conversations we have. I don't think there's any jeopardy for the minutes the way they were submitted. If we go through this every week, this kind of tedious wordsmithing of what we wish we would have said or what we think we might have said, we're never going to get into the business of the city. So I'm prepared to plow ahead tonight, and I hope in the future we don't take this kind of tedious approach to the minutes and the review of each and every word.
I
I
agree.
guess, I guess in response, Councilor Burke, it's a misrepresentation of the conclusions in the discussion that were held. And so leaving the minutes as they are misrepresents really the whole thrust of that conversation, which is what I was attempting to clarify by the two adjustments that were made here, one from Chief Sims and one from myself.
Fair enough. Okay, anybody else want to speak to this? All right.
You know, I don't really,
Jesus.
I get it. I know it's kind of, a little bit tedious, and I understand that. At the same time, we do go through this exercise of approving the minutes. And if there's a council member that doesn't feel like they were appropriately represented in the meeting minutes, I don't think it's anything personal, but they would like clarification in case somebody, because minutes are referred to. As a matter of fact, we have an ordinance that we're going to be voting on here in just a little while. And, council for the organization that is requesting that rezoning refers back to what was said in the minutes. So, if somebody wants to be correctly represented, I think they have that right to express their views and to have correction if they think it's necessary.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, let's go for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, so this is for the
This is on the second amendment to the minutes.
version?
Yes, for the amended version of number 2.
Okay. Councilmember Wozniak,
No.
Councilmember Flynn,
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
No.
Councilmember Wilms,
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Now, going forward,
Wait a minute, what about Jerry? Somebody was missing on the roll call, Jerry Snow.
he just said yes, didn't you, Jerry?
I didn't hear. the
No,
name.
I didn't, but I'll say yes now.
I'm sorry, I thought, okay,
okay,
the vote's 4-2.
all right. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the January 25th meeting as amended.
so moved.
Second.
Now I got a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, let's go for a roll call vote.
Okay, Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, we have another set of minutes that of February 4th, where we had a special meeting, and that was to approve EMS billing and management for the ambulance billing. Anybody have any comments? Okay, a motion to approve, please.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote again. Councilmember Flynn,
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms? Wilms?
He's left the room.
Oh. Snow?
Yes.
I one abstain.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to send the minutes out with your work session packet instead of waiting for the final. Okay. And please don't bring changes in 3 hours before the council meeting. but it'll give you lots of time to digest it and have a look at it. Okay, let's move on. Financial reports were sent out by Carrie. As you can see, we ended the year in excellent shape. Our reserve has never been this high. It's 9.5. It's 55% of the unrestricted income. Great job done by all the department heads. It just turned out to be a banner year. And I must say, a year ago, all of us, I think, were wondering and scratching our heads, just where were we going to end? Okay, it comes to this time of the year where the mayor has to read a state of the city. And that's required by state statute 14-58-302. Many adjectives come to mind describing 2020: different, distinct, peculiar, offbeat, divergent, challenging, and at times downright frightening. Of course, I refer to the COVID-19 pandemic that still plagues the world, although as I write, vaccines are being rolled out across the world, our nation, our state, and our community. Social unrest that has been bubbling beneath the surface has flared to the forefront and given us all reason to pause. From my perspective, all these challenges have strengthened our resolve to move forward in unity and with purpose. I quote Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945, a time that was full of uncertainty as World War II drew to a close. And although everyone knew the world would be changed forever, no one knew the outcome. Quote, "The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. Let us move forward with strong and active faith." End of quote. In Bella Vista, we continue to move forward in 2020. In my State of the City address last year, I highlighted 11 activities that were on the horizon. We completed 10 of them. The annual garage sale was canceled due to COVID-19 concerns. In addition, as a side, the farmers market was also regrettably put on the back burner for the year. Allow me to highlight some of our 2020 accomplishments. The residents of Bella Vista voted to approve a 1% sales tax to fund a $24 million bond for 3 very important projects. Our very first public safety building for police and the district court, a new fire station number 3 on Glasgow, and a fire training facility. We adopted our 2040 comprehensive plan with extensive input from residents, for which I'm very thankful. We completed 50 miles of soft surface trails, including 8 tunnels and 3 bridges, as part of the Little Sugar Trail network in the central area of the city, which is connected to the back 40 trails on the east side. We processed and inspected 416 new residential construction permits, which translates into aggregate growth of 1,405 new houses, or 3,602% since the end of 2013. A new traffic light was installed at the intersection of Highway 71 and Kingsland Road. The addition to our library was completed. 3 new services were introduced by library staff in response to COVID: 100% digital resource services, curbside pickup, and grab and go. The closing of the library due to COVID gave the staff the opportunity to complete an extensive reorganization of shelves and material, as well as refurbishing the checkout area. Communications between the city and our residents became paramount, and our communications director stepped up to the challenge to explain the bond election, to participate in the daily Joint Information Center conference calls for COVID, to ensure that residents had the most up-to-date information, and to provide residents with relevant information about our local city council elections. The city also provided information to residents on the importance of participating in Census 2020, which was successful. Bella Vista had the highest self-reporting rate in the state at 84%. In conjunction with the Discover Bella Vista team on the Advertising and Promotion Commission, we continued to promote trails and the healthy lifestyle of Bella Vista. As a result, for the 2nd year in a row, the city of Bella Vista was recognized as the state's winner of the Tourism Development and Creative Culture Trendsetting Award, which is conveyed by the Arkansas Business Magazine. Our streets department resurfaced 31 miles of roads using asphalt and slurry. After many years of planning, they successfully widened and paved Rothbury Drive on the west side and County Road on the east side. They received 97 citizen requests, of which 837, or 93%, were completed in a timely manner. With the advent of COVID, our legal department and court had to completely revamp their processes to ensure the safety of all participants. This took weeks of effort by many people to pull together the end result. All arraignments were converted to Zoom calls. Parties were invited to appear in court if they were unable or uncomfortable to appear in person. Given all these constraints, the court was still able to initiate over 1,800 cases and dispose of more than 1,400 by the end of the year. The fire department was busy working on the bond project. They broke ground for the new fire station number 3. Our community paramedics began telehealth COVID-19 testing in conjunction with Northwest Health Systems. They were the central point of contact for PPE for all city offices and responsible for fogging all city offices with disinfectant on a frequent basis. In late December, they took possession of another remounted, completely updated ambulance, the 4th in as many years. The police department was also busy with the bond project and the selection of an architect, civil engineers, and construction manager. Throughout the pandemic, our officers and staff have continued to provide excellent service. They established protocols that balanced officer safety and health with community concerns and needs. Appropriate staffing levels have been maintained throughout the entire department. Administration has also been on the top of their game. HR released a new employee handbook, streamlined our health benefit system, adjusted the HSA plan, and selected a new payroll system to be cut over in 2021. The preparation for the new system absorbed countless hours of their time. On top of all this, they continue to guide employees through their particular COVID experiences. Our IT department reacted quickly to the changing business world by introducing Zoom capabilities in all departments. During the closure of the library, IT worked with AT&T to bring fiber optics into the library, eliminating the need for satellite internet, which was questionable at best. They continue to expand our network security, have completed the installation of all computers and electronic ticketing in police vehicles, and upgraded the computers by using our being used by our code enforcement officers and building inspectors. This has been a busy year for finance. Our finance director was the central figure in our bond issue, which required many hours of planning, creating new budgets, tracking, and working with underwriters and bond counsel. The director spent weeks working with state finance and administration grant contractors to complete the very detailed paperwork and submission requesting a state grant from the CARES Act. Thanks to her efforts, the city received a little over $1 million. We ended 2020 with an unrestricted reserve balance of $9.4 million, which is 3.4 greater than our budgeted ending balance of $6 million. This ending balance of 9.4 equals 55% of our annual unrestricted revenue of $17.1 million. Total 2020 general fund revenues, restricted and unrestricted, of $20.8 million exceeded 2019 revenues by $89,000. Total 2020 general fund revenues, restricted and unrestricted, came in at a budget deficit of 1.7. This deficit is comprised of a $2.6 million deficit in grant revenue budgeted for the RDOT Mercy Way Bridge and was offset by surpluses in almost every other category of revenue collected by the city. Separating the unrestricted revenues from total 2020 revenues, we have an unrestricted revenue surplus of $995,000. The main sources of the 2020 revenue surplus are sales tax at $668,000, primarily internet tax, property taxes at $68,000, which reflects the building we've seen, and building inspection fees of $152,000. Street fund revenues for 2020 exceeded 2019 by $113,000 and exceeded the budget by $135,000. General fund 2020 operating capital improvement and debt service expenditures of $19.9 million exceeded 2019 expenditures by $2.2 million, but came in slightly under budget. Unfinished capital projects such as the Mercy Way expansion project contributed to the $5.4 million of the surplus, with the amount of the remainder coming from savings and canceled traveling and training expenditures due to the pandemic. Street Fund 2020 operating expenditures were 3.3 million and were $164,000 less than 2019 and came in under budget at 372,000. This year promises to be a very exciting year full of infrastructure improvements. Fire station number 3 on Glasgow. Construction will begin soon. Estimated completion is October the 1st. The public safety complex has 60% drawings, and Chief Graves will be asking council in May for permission to move forward with construction. That's the GMP that we went through recently with the fire station. Estimated time frame for construction is 1 year. The fire training facility is still in the process of obtaining land. Blowing Springs Metville Connector, the estimated completion is by the end of March. RDOT is planning to resurface Highway 279, Forest Hills Boulevard, from Highway 72 to the Missouri border. The project will start within 2 to 4 weeks. Estimated completion is mid-year. The approved 2021 budget has 2.6 million set aside for street resurfacing. This is double the normal annual budget. Finally, RDOT will begin work on the Little Sugar and Tanyard Creek bridges on State Highway 340, which is Lancashire Drive, this spring. We will continue to work closely with the Arkansas Department of Health, as well as local medical providers as we navigate through the vaccination stage of eradicating the COVID-19 virus. Other projects under consideration include impact fees for new residential and commercial construction. As we grow in size, the city must ensure we have the financial resources to expand our services. We are reviewing the possibility of opening the farmers market for 2021. And we plan to replace 3 wayfinding signs that have been destroyed by vehicle accidents, as well as the straight line windstorm of August 2019. As always, on behalf of all members of City Council, I extend thanks to the many volunteers in our community who work tirelessly with the library, animal shelter, trail maintenance, the recycling center, the museum, our churches, community groups, and service clubs, all of whom are vital to the success of our wonderful community. I also extend a huge thank you to our employees and their supportive families. We have a great team for a great city. Bella Vista is truly a wonderful place to call home. Thank you. Moving on, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read all proposed ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Yep.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Burke, Steve,
Steve, you're muted.
yes,
Yes.
Fowler? Fowler,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't understand you.
Flynn,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
We have 3 pieces of old business. They're all ordinances. The first is amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for the construction of certain minimum size septic systems based on the square footage of the residential structure to be served, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. This was tabled from December of 2020 on second reading. We had a very good discussion about this, if you remember, at the work session. We had tabled it and asked Mr. Tapp, the director of CDS, to pull together a team to study the whole issue of septic systems. That he did. He pulled together realtors, builders, and the Arkansas Department of Health. At the work session, we had a representative from the builders group and also from the realtors. Great deal of work has been done, tremendous enthusiasm for this project, and many good suggestions were put forward. It became rather evident that this current ordinance was insufficient to meet not only what do we do with new construction, but how do we protect the buyer as a sale. of an existing home. And if I read the consensus correctly, I believe that we would like to table this indefinitely, which essentially kills the ordinance. And we would ask Mr. Tapp to come back after further negotiations and discussions with his team and the stakeholders, and bring us a complete package of ordinances so that we can move forward. So before I ask for that motion to table indefinitely, I'll open up the floor for comments.
Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
we need to give this committee sufficient amount of time so they can do it right. You know, we've tried to push a bunch of things through. If you remember in the past, we get to the city council meeting and we start beating up on each other and beating up on the ordinance because we really didn't have time or the expertise to think it through. I believe even if it takes these guys a couple months, we need to give them all the time they need. We need to get out of their way. They've got the experience and whatever else they need to go ahead and give us something that we can look at and not beat up too bad when we go ahead and try to go forward. So I'm going to go for the tabling, but I'm also going to suggest now that we give them sufficient time to go ahead and get it right so we don't end up playing this game again.
Doug, Tapp, do you have any idea how much time you're going to need? Or do you want to just pick an arbitrary something like May? And if you're not ready, so be it.
Mayor, I would think we could get that done by May, but when you bring as many people to the table as we have, it's often hard to get them all together for meetings.
Let's say by the fall. How's
But
that?
I think May would suffice.
Oh, you think May will do?
I mean, that's 3 months. I think we can come up with an ordinance by then.
Okay.
Yeah, but make sure you get it right. Don't just bring us something because we said 3 months. If it takes longer, take the time.
Yeah,
Well,
for a couple months in and it doesn't appear that the entire thing's going to be done, I can certainly update you along the way and let you know what's been done and what still needs to be done.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Wilms?
When we had a long discussion of that at the council work session, and I think even at the council meeting in November, December, I had indicated a desire to participate in that. I guess I didn't hear anything from anyone that a meeting was going to be held. I would have, I think, probably been able to contribute some thoughts to that would be beneficial. Would like to suggest that we have more council people involved on that and that program. And I would like to, I guess, be involved in that.
Fair enough. Anybody else? Steve?
I don't think that's a problem. They have more council people. We'll make it a public meeting, but I think the things people were discussing were perfectly relevant and not embarrassing in any way. They're trying to figure out the best way to get this done in a good way.
Mr. Berg?
I was just going to add that I do support tabling the current ordinance, but I do think that what we learned at the work session was there are a pool of good ideas already on the table. And I would say we have momentum, we have the right resources connected, and we ought to move forward on this with the sense of urgency. I appreciate we want to get it right, but I think we're more than halfway there. I hope we can take the pool of ideas that are out there, piece those together, get the right solution to the specific problems that we addressed in the work council. And I hope we can move forward. And if we need to discuss this at any of the future work councils, we have that opportunity to do it. So I would just say, while we have momentum, let's drive it forward and work with a sense of urgency.
I agree. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, one thing came up in the work session, which is kind of a balance between what Jim Wozniak and Steve Burke just said, that perhaps he could come up with an ordinance fairly quickly about new construction, because the problem is new construction is happening fast. And And then work a little longer on other parts of it, like the existing homes and whatnot. You know, there's a way to have more than one ordinance and get something going quickly
Okay,
or more quickly. I certainly agree we want it to be done right.
I would share the sentiment of Councilman Flynn that the new construction was emphasized to be a driving issue for urgency. I think the longer term solution may take us until May to come up with something that's viable, functional, and we can implement in a reasonable fashion.
okay, Mr. Tapp, I'll leave it with you to go back to the team. Please feel free to invite the council members, and then we'll have to have Mr. Jurgensen actually issue a notice of meeting to the press, etc.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if it's appropriate, but kind of everybody's point, it's a complex issue, right? And I would say a majority of us probably aren't not that well versed, you know, on septic systems and all the issues. And, you know, whether you're kind of like well versed enough to be part of the solution, if nothing else, as you work through this, Doug, and you're sitting down having conversation, and I can't be part of every single conversation, no one can, but if it's appropriate to call a meeting just to share ideas or learnings, I'd like to be part of that, because I know I'm going to have to educate myself, you know, on this topic, you know, to a you know, pretty high level of knowledge in order to make, you know, an informed decision. So rather than coming in the back end of this after you've already done all your work and then having to extrapolate all that again, you know, or explain it again, I don't know. I would encourage at least maybe 1 or 2 meetings to share what you're thinking, just to educate, you know, as we're going down the continuum. So
Sure.
And we will have, of course, the March and April work sessions too for Doug to update us.
yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Entertain a motion to table this ordinance indefinitely.
So
So
moved.
move. Second.
Thank you. We'll go for a roll call, Wayne.
Okay. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, thank you. The next ordinance is amending the Televista zoning ordinance and map to rezone properties described in rezoning petition number 2020-36098, county parcel number 16-31043-000 from P1 Conservation District to R1 Single Family Residential. That's the second reading. Council Member Fowler, may I turn it over to you?
Sure. You know, I certainly have some thoughts. I mean, obviously this isn't all, you know, my decision to make, certainly, but, you know, spent a lot of time thinking about it. Because, you know, you want to get this right. I mean, this is a rezoning request that is certainly not typical on a parcel of land that involves some complications, right? So I'd like to clarify one thing right up front, because I've read in comments from the public, and I've actually heard this said in a couple of meetings, but P1 Conservation District, there are some people, and again, this isn't everyone, I know some people are really dialed in, but P1, that is not designated like parkland or a park or recreational use or something like that specifically. P1 is designated as a conservation district. And just a brief description is the general description and purpose. The recreational open space district is designated to protect and enhance vital natural resources such as floodplains, streams, wetlands, exceedingly steep topography, woodlands, and wildlife habitat. Further, this district serves to maintain a buffer between incompatible land uses and to restrict development in areas not suitable for or capable of sustaining development while allowing certain uses which are not detrimental to the land. So that's a conservation district, and that's what we're dealing with right now. And I would like to say, you know, during my research on this, I've actually been out to that property like 3 different times. Just sitting, you know, in that one kind of little circle drive and looking back over the land. And just in viewing that land, I can certainly see back whenever this was zoned after the city was formed, how that could have been zoned as P1. I mean, it isn't hard to see that. So I don't think whenever this happened that this was arbitrary or a capricious probably decision. I think it was probably well thought out. Now, what the steps were in the zoning process in the early days of the city, or how that unfolded, I'm really not sure. But I do know it took place a period of time ago, at least 10 years or greater. And this subject of rezoning hasn't come up until just recently, which somewhat surprises me. I can only venture to guess as why it has come up, but it's taken a good period of time for that to happen. And I would like to say too, so I read through the document that was put in a packet from the organization that wants this parcel rezoned. And I read a piece in here, and I think it's really misleading. And I would just like to read this real quick. It says, in addition to failing to support its decision with rezoning on a rational basis, the commission's decision goes directly, and that's the planning commission. The planning commission's decision goes directly against the underlying staff recommendation regarding the application. The commission received a strong recommendation for approval of the application from the commission staff found in the staff report accompanying the application, which clearly states commission staff recommends rezoning the subject lands. This recommendation for approval was discussed at length at the commission meeting as is evidenced in the meeting minutes. The commission's failure to follow the substantial, clear, and convincing evidence contained in the staff's recommendation of approval is further and strong support of CCI's assertion that the commission's denial is arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. So when I read this, what I would take from it, if I was a little closer to the subject, is that the commission turned down CCI's original request, which was to rezone the whole 9-point-some odd acres as rezoned from P1 to R1, when in fact the staff's recommendation was to rezone, I'm going to say, look, I don't know exact number, 2.25 acres as R1 and leave the remaining 7 odd acres as P1 because it's in a floodplain. So to me, this is a misleading statement. The staff recommended, again, rezoning, and the conversation centered around their recommendation, not the original CCI recommendation. Okay. And I took a couple of other just comments from the letter that was written to us. And it says, in another part, it says, in such event, the city will be required by law to compensate CCI for the fair market value of parcel 128 because CCI has lost all economically beneficial use of parcel 128 by virtue of the application of P1 zoning. It says the application of P1 zoning effectively appropriates the property for public use. And I can't find anywhere or anything or any document that states that. This is and will remain private property, okay, regardless of whether it's zoned P1 or R1. And then lastly, it says a zoning regulation categorically amounts to an unconstitutional taking if the regulation deprives an owner of all economically beneficial use of his or her property. So I would just like to recognize that this is private land. And whenever I go and I view that land and in detail, I would have to agree that there is some land there that certainly can be developed. And the original request was for a development of the single family residence. So there's about 2.25 acres. That's why I recommended the amendment, which was voted on and passed, to go back to the original staff recommendation and their support thereof, because I think if a portion of that land is potentially could be developed, I think that should be allowed to happen. Now, just going a little bit step further, and I've been talking to Derek about this extensively, in their review of CCI's request, and then they came up with their recommendation. I want Derek, if he would, to explain why it's probably important to leave the land that's in the floodplain zoned as P1.
Sure thing. Can you hear me okay, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. So we do have a floodplain ordinance in our code, which is required by the NFIP, that's the National Flood Insurance Program. And it specifies how development in a floodplain is to occur and is not to occur. And so it's important to keep in mind that the flood zone that exists in this valley, it's called an A zone. So it has a flood boundary identified by FEMA. However, there's only so much data that's available and so much data that's not. And without getting into the weeds too much, it's a zone in which base flood elevations have not been determined. However, to kind of drill down into the specifics that are in the application. So for example, if someone wants to build a house, house construction in this property, if a home were to be built in that floodplain, okay, if we were to have someone propose that home builder is required to elevate to a finished floor elevation of 2 feet above the base flood elevation for that creek. And I just said a second ago, we don't know what that base flood elevation is. So that's a piece of engineering and survey data that applicant would have to provide. In short, that's good practice that helps protect the new home from flooding. However, once they have verified that as-built floor elevation on an elevation certificate, the city code provides that we go ahead and continue with the permitting on that house as we would any other house anywhere else in the city. To that end, there's no required analysis, if you will, or study to see how or to what degree that fill that was required to elevate that home, how that impacts or doesn't impact others in the valley. And so while that basic requirement to elevate, it helps protect that subject house, we as a city, we can't require that applicant, that builder to tell us how, to show us how with engineering study, how that affects others from a flooding perspective. So that's an important consideration to keep in mind when we're talking about building in this valley. So if the ordinance were to be supported as written, that would be in sync with the purpose of the P1 district, which among other purposes is identified in the Muni Code to protect those areas and provide those items like the councilman mentioned a second ago, and it would keep home footprints in this valley out of that floodplain.
Okay, thank you. So in a nutshell then, just so everybody understands, especially the folks that have signed in, the amended ordinance that I just read is the one that staff has recommended. As Council Member Fowler said, of the 9 acres, some 2.25 is or would be R1 under this proposal, and the rest will remain as P1. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
I want to ask Derek one further question. So Derek, so let's just say right now, when there's an application for a potential rezone, council votes or whoever, and it's approved, plans can change, right? Somebody said, well, we may want to build a single family residence here, but you know what? There's actually now we have additional land. We really have room to fit, a small subdivision on this land. So now you have the potential of building multiple homes, and those homes would also be subject to only the same standard as the single home, that they could be built 2 feet above floodplain. So you could have multiple homes and they all have the same designation, right? Or the same requirements. And they wouldn't have to do a study about how that might impact downstream, if you will, floodplain area, and makes it negatively, impact other properties and things like that that may already be existing or whatever. Is that right?
It's possible if we got up to a substantial subdivision size that we could require additional analysis. If someone were to just propose to plat out that valley, if you will, I think we could require additional analysis on that. However, if we're just talking a couple of house footprints, couple 3, 4, then no, our code does not suggest that we would be able to require the analysis to see how that impacts others.
Yeah, so, some of, my intent for leaving a substantial, tract that's in the floodplain and not rezoning it R1 is for residents that might potentially, or the potential residents in the future and how they might be negatively impacted. Because right now, well, a developer is only required to meet minimum standards and that's it. And in the National Flood Insurance Program, it says communities, when setting an ordinances in this regard, they actually should seek to develop ordinances that exceed the minimum requirements, not meet minimum requirements. And right now, I have a real concern, with our current ordinance and how it's stated, how it's written.
Let's get back to the amended ordinance that we've been talking about here. Anybody else wish to weigh in before?
Well, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
One is for Doug, and I'd prefer a yes or no answer. Is he still in favor of his amendment? And my second question is, obviously the amendment was something less than what the applicant had asked for. Has there been any pushback from the applicant? I haven't heard anything from him. I didn't know if anyone else had.
But yes, I still support the amendment. There's 2.25 acres, I believe, that deserves consideration for development. It is not in floodplain. It's above floodplain. It's property that can be developed. Secondarily, no, I haven't heard anything, and I can't speak for anyone else.
No, I haven't. Mr. Kelly, have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything. I had a brief exchange with Gene Grossclose, attorney for Cooper, just regarding just with some ideas about all this, and they didn't really say much of anything. So I think they're going to see what we do, and then they're going to act in their best interest. Is what they're going to do, which we would expect anyone to do. So, but no, I've not heard a specific response to the amended ordinance that was that Mr. Fowler presented.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilms?
I had a fairly lengthy conversation with Planner Lynn this morning relative to defining the floodplain boundaries and where the R1 and the P1 zones would occur. And he indicated that the city had received, and maybe not in relation to this application, but in other things, a survey that delineated the floodplain from the non-floodplain areas as mapped by FEMA. And he sent that to me, and I've suggested as a result of that an amendment adding section 2 that clarifies, because the section 1 was amended by Mr. Fowler to say as reflected in the attached drawing, and that was kind of a sketch that was done by the planning department in their presentation to the planning commission. The reality is that there is a better document available delineating the floodplain or P1 zones, if you will, and leaving the R1 in concert with the intent of Mr. Fowler. And I'm suggesting that we amend and add a section 2 that says for mapping purposes, the depiction of the R1 and the P1 zones will be as provided by verification of the surveyed floodplain boundary, and in parentheses, and resulting zoning district boundaries, end parentheses, shall be as depicted in a November 16th, 2020 survey performed by Public Land Surveyor number 1286, and as heretofore provided to the city of Bella Vista. In other words, it's on file in the planning department and it nails it down. That's been recorded, I think, with the Benton County as well as the state, as all of those surveys are. So the information is available, but it clarifies, I think, the intended action by the council to delineate the areas to be changed from P1 to R1, and that's the important part.
So Derek, in the package that you provided, there is a map that looks very similar to what Mr. Wilms is suggesting. Are you telling me that there's two maps that could be there?
No, the graphic that was added by Mr. Fowler is a graphic pictorially representing our zoning map, showing the floodplain areas versus the proposed R1 space.
Okay, but that didn't come from Mr. Fowler. That came from Derek and his crew.
It did, but that was the presentation by Mr. Fowler in his amendment, I believe.
Yeah, well, actually, my amendment was to follow the staff's
Right.
original recommendation. It wasn't, I don't know if I said something about a picture, I apologize, but it was really, my intent was to follow the staff's original recommendation, which included a picture. So,
Derek,
Right.
my point is, what's the difference between the one that Mr. Wilms has shown on his screen a minute ago and the one that you included in the package that went to the planning committee and subsequently is sitting in our package now?
So in tonight's packet, right below the ordinance. So yeah, that's a great image right there being shared on the screen. That's a copy of a survey that we received a couple of months ago. We received different versions of this. Anyway, or I shouldn't say different versions, but at one time this was used with some yellow coloring by the applicant when they were showing their alternate proposal. The best way that I can summarize Mr. Wilms's adjustment that he's suggesting in section 2 is basically to say it's the Fowler version, but just verifying that the floodplain line is not based on the GIS map, which is not survey grade, but rather it's based on the surveyed location of the floodplain boundary, which inherently is also being proposed as the district boundary for the zoning change.
Okay, not to belabor this any longer then, so Mr. Wilms, what you're suggesting is an amendment to put in a section 2?
Yes,
Okay, before we go there, Steve, I think I see your hand.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say, as a former member of the Planning Commission, I've had opportunity to work alongside of many of the members, current members of the Planning Commission. I find them to be intelligent, thoughtful, open-minded people. I don't believe their consideration of this application was unreasonable or capricious. I've seen a number of packages over the time that I served there and subsequently as a member of City Council that staff has prepared. This has been one of the most thoroughly addressed applications that I've seen in my time in Bella Vista. I think it was very thorough, very thoughtful, very fair-minded, and as the Planning Commission made their considerations, they didn't address this one necessarily, but I think that's what's before the City Council now, and I support the staff recommendation for this application.
Okay, so Mr. Wilms, then you're putting a motion forward to add section 2 to the amended ordinance.
to clarify and accurately reflect what we're really acting upon.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, is there a seconder?
second,
Okay, I need to speak up here.
Sure, please.
If someone put the proposed map drawing on the screen so I can see it,
Yeah,
because it doesn't, the point of the map is to show the zones. And the map does not reflect the zones if it's the drawing that I just saw.
It does not, and it really only defects, it really only identifies the P1 zone that remains because it's floodplain.
Yeah, and so what's in your current packet, the amendment that Mr. Fowler requested, so it changed two things. It added in section 1 the phrase "as reflected in the attached drawing," and then the attached drawing I created. It was from the Planning Commission packet. It was from the staff recommendation, but I just took that in isolation, and the yellow area, if you're looking at your packet, is the flood area. And so I needed to reflect the zones, because this is what we're doing. We're talking about the zoning, and that's the most important thing on the map. So to reflect the zones as they would be, as was intended by Mr. Fowler, which would leave that yellow area as P1, which is what it currently is. And then the remaining, and excuse me, there's a piece of the parcel across the street, across Trafalgar, that would remain P1. And then the remaining portions would be R1. Now that yellow portion on this drawing that's currently before you and currently in your packet mirrors this drawing that I'm looking at, the fuchsia, or excuse me, the purplish looking lines across there. But this, I mean, I don't, this map is insufficient because it does not show the zoning, which is what we're doing. We can't use this unless it's added to some more. So that's what
For clarification, Jason, the circled areas have a delineation that show zone X and zone A, and they're hardly legible on this version because it's been shrunk down and it was shaded in the first place.
What are zone X and zone A?
I'll let Planner Lynn explain those.
That's the divider line. So on Jason, on your drawing, the yellow that will remain as P1, that's zone A. So it's in between the fuchsia colored dashed lines on this drawing, and then X is not in floodplain, and so that's the area that would remain as
that would change to R1.
Change to R1. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well,
so I think all Mr. Williams was trying to do with this section 2 is just basically say at the end of the day, when the map is being created, that we don't base it off of the GIS map, which we have in the packet, but rather that the nuts and bolts of exactly where that line is drawn is just based on a survey. It's just based on a survey. But at the end of the day, it's essentially what your drawing is showing, Jason.
Can I see the wording that's of the proposed section 2, the actual text?
he wants to see the wording that Mr. Williams has put together.
Can you scroll?
I don't know if Larry's got to show that or, okay, there it is. All right.
There it is. It was sent out to everyone.
Okay. For mapping purposes, the depiction of the R1 and P1 zones will be as provided by verification of the surveyed floodplain boundary and resulting zoning district boundaries shall be as depicted. Okay. Well, my recommendation would be if you want to amend and add section 2, I don't have a problem with that at all legally, but I would not change the map. I would leave the current drawing in there.
Yes.
As the general, if you want to call it the reference map. And then when we're going to get down to, okay, how many inches is it this way versus this way when we get out there, then we've got this wording that will specifically give engineering clarification or survey clarification about that. So I would just not that map. We don't need to use that map as is in substitution of what we've got in the packet at this point, unless there were to be some additions to it.
So we have.
Jason, it's not intended to use the map that I provided as an appendage.
I thought it was.
Using it to illustrate how it compares with the graphic that you provided.
Okay, well, that makes sense, and I thought it was, so, okay.
Okay, so we have put the the graph with the colors on your screen, so hopefully you can all see it. Derek, that's the graph that went, or the depiction that went in front of the Planning Commission?
That's correct. That image that Jason created, it's right in sync with the staff's recommendation in that original report. And basically what staff did was we said, we recommend approval of this conditioned upon the actual line being based on a real world survey. And so that's kind of, I think that's kind of what's going on here is we're all looking at this map that's on the screen right now, but just saying at the end of the day, when the pencil line is drawn exactly like Jason was saying, 4 inches this way and that way, that it's just being based on survey data, basically.
It's dotting i's and crossing t's.
Mhm.
Which is really the section 2 addition that's being proposed here.
Okay, so we have a motion to add the section 2. It has been seconded by Mr. Fowler. Does anybody wish to speak further on this? Okay, then I would call for a roll call vote on the amendment, please.
Okay. Councilmember Flynn,
Yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
and Burke.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Okay, thank you. So that will be the amended version next month when we go for the third and final reading. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I would, I guess, offer that we waive the third reading and go to final at this point in the interest of the property owner, perhaps wanting to make the transition in their business dealings with interested party to buy it.
okay, so you're making a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final reading.
Move to third and final reading. Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote and you're voting on a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay,
Go.
I move to.
Is this going to third and final at this point or just suspend the rule?
This
This is
is to move to third and final.
I haven't read it yet, so it's not on third. This is
Okay.
motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final. Okay,
Gotcha.
righto.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Snow,
Yes.
carried.
Okay,
Mayor, need to read the title a third time.
I'm sorry?
Mayor, you need to read the title for the third time.
Right. Amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2020-36098, county parcel number 16-31043-000 from P1 Conservation District to R1 Single Family Residential. Okay,
Motion to approve.
second.
okay, any discussion? All righty, Wayne?
Okay. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
and Burke,
Yes.
carried.
Okay, thank you. The next is an ordinance, and I'm going to read the amended one that's in your package as part of the agenda, and then I'll be, yes, Mr. Kelly?
We need to read it as it is on the agenda first.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, I think you said it the other way, but
Right.
we need to read it as in the agenda first, and then we'll have amendments.
Right. Okay. So amending Article 3 of Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista, clarifying the definition of special event, modify the timing requirements for applications to make additional modifications and for other purposes. If you look at your package now, there is a further amendment, which it reads as this. Amending Article 3 of Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista, clarifying the definition of special event to modify the timing requirements for applications to make additional modifications, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. And if you remember at the work session, Cassie was concerned that unless we put the emergency clause on, because there's a 90-day wait period after it's been published, we would already have events on the trails in May. And the emergency clause allows this to come into effect before the trail events start in May.
So Mayor, if I could clarify just one thing, there is in your packet, there is basically a proposed substitute amendment. And what it adds is it adds the emergency clause. It also changes the filing period dates from the prior proposal to at least 60 and no more than 120 days. We discussed that. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So though that is the extent of the changes, but we'll need to have a motion to amend, a second, and a vote before we could potentially move this on ahead.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this amended version.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Thank you. Is there discussion? Okay,
Okay. Roll call vote on the motion to amend. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Snow,
Yes.
and Wilms.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
okay. So now I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote to vote on suspending the rules.
Okay, Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Wozniak.
Yep.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, third and final reading. Amending Article 3 of Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista, clarifying the definition of special event, to modify the timing requirements for applications, to make additional modifications, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Is
All
there,
right, so that's a motion to approve, I assume?
yes, sir?
Okay.
Second.
Second, did you get the second?
Yep.
Okay, discussion. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
They've already done that. That was,
It's roll call vote.
So we'll do roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
and Wilms.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Okay, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Now I'll entertain a motion declaring an emergency for,
motion to adopt the emergency clause.
right.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Wayne?
Okay. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Okay, thanks. Let's move to new business now, the first of which is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2020-36-834, county parcel number 16-40238-000 from R1 single family residential to C2 light commercial. To just jog the memory cells, this is the Legion property down in the corner of Kingsland and 71. I did do a bit of digging. Apparently, if you remember, if you've been here long enough, there was a home where the actual Legion now sits. The Legion then bought the home, and as part of their project to put up a new building, they brought in the fire department, if I remember, Chief. And it was a planned burn. And after that was completed, then the Legion put up the building that we have today. However, it was never converted, or excuse me, it was never rezoned over to a C2. Now the building is up for sale. Our friends at the Legion are telling us that they have a buyer, but they need to have it rezoned to C2 in order to complete that transaction. So that's kind of the history that I found when I did a little bit of digging. Anybody have any discussion? Yes, Mr.
Motion to approve.
No, we have a,
We gotta go to third and final.
just a sec.
My question is C2 the proper zoning district to be used? And I guess I look at the number of uses under that category, and it's pretty broad. And the question is, do we know what the intended use of the property is when it's sold?
We don't need to get into that. We in fact, we can't get into that. We can look at it in terms of all the potential uses in a C2, but as for what particular use, that would not be appropriate. So you need to look at it in terms of it could be anything on that C2 list.
And I understand that. And the question is, I assume the application was for C2, not a more restrictive zone, but it really opens the door to a wide variety of uses there that I'm not sure all of them are appropriate for that location. I think many of them are, but I don't know about all of them. And I don't know if there's another zoning district that would be more restrictive in terms of commercial use than C2 or not.
Taylor, this was your project, I believe. And did the applicant ask for C2? You're muted.
Yeah, I mean, they requested C2. They requested C1 at first, but then they changed their mind and had enough time to change to C2.
And it went in front of the planning commission as C2?
Yeah, we notified the public all prior to notification deadlines as C2.
And then the planning commission recommended approval to council?
Yeah, for C2,
C2 is also a staff recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I'd like to make a motion, we move to third and final.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Okay, roll call on moving to third and final. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay. Third and final. Amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2020-36-834, county parcel number 16-40238-000 from R1 single family residential to C2 light commercial.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Right, Wayne?
Okay. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, now we move into the world of resolutions. The first, confirming the mayor's appointment of Doug Tapp to be the City of Bella Vista representative on the Benton County Regional Solid Waste Management District Board. If you remember at the work session, I am proposing this. All the mayors are automatically on that board. However, most cities have a representative. Politicians come and go, but the staff provides the consistency from one administration to another. And it would help us a great deal if we didn't have to bring another mayor up to snuff. That Doug, provided he's still here, will actually provide that consistency going forward so that he's able to brief the new mayor and myself for the remainder of my term on what's happening over at the Solid Waste Commission. But that's the reason that I'm putting this forth, is so that there is consistency of representation. Is there any discussion at all? Mr. Wilms?
In support of your proposal, Mayor, most of the larger cities, I think, have designated a representative as opposed to the mayor attending, even though the mayor may on occasion attend with the representative. It makes a clear delineation, and your argument is valid for continuity. The smaller communities, I think typically the mayor attends there because they don't have such a staff as the larger cities do. And so they usually attend if they send a representative at all. So I'm in support of the proposal.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Councilmember Flynn,
Yes,
Snow,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Okay, the next resolution, making various adjustments to the 2021 city budget related to restricted funds. You may remember Carrie took us through line by line, department by department on the restricted funds. For those of you that are watching at home, a restricted fund is just what it says. That money can only be used for a certain project. It cannot be bundled into general funds. Therefore, it is accounted for separately. And the reason for waiting this long on the budget is because the department heads are still working on depleting that money past the normal budget period. So in order to close the books properly, which Carrie has now done, except for this last piece, then we can consider the year is finished, and we'll now start lining up the auditors to come in probably sometime in April or May. So is there any discussion at all? Yes, Mr. Wilms.
After our work session, I looked at this in a little more detail, and I have some questions. Carrie may not be on the line tonight, but you may be able to answer those. On the second page, there's a group called Grant Revenue WFF Mercy Way / Blowing Springs Grant. And in there are some delineated entries that say bridge construction, utilities and right of way for bridge project, bridge construction. And I'm wondering, and those are a part of the Walton Family Foundation grants, I'm sure, but I'm wondering if the monies between the Mercy Way Bridge in those grants and the Blowing Springs causeway up there should be separated so that it accurately reflects the monies that are in both of those accounts. Because I don't think that, as an example, the first entry is item number 46,425, grant revenue, Walton Family Foundation, Mercy Way, Blowing Springs grant, parenthesis, bridge construction funding. It's got $558,443. I'm thinking that if all of that is for the bridge, the entry really needs to fall below in the bridge project, because that's what that revenue and those monies relate to. Not only that, but the costs itself. If you look at the monies in the bridge contract itself, only totals out to 2.6 million, and I believe the total cost of that is around 5. And so if you take those other monies from the above grouping and put them down with the bridge project, it will accumulate to what the indicated total project cost is. And I'm not sure if the dollar amounts totally are for the designation in parentheses or not. It might appear that they are, and even though they're from the Walton Family Foundation, they're really a part of the bridge project, the Mercy Way Bridge, and I think they should be reflected there in the accounting.
Part of the agreement with the Walton Family Foundation is you can commingle your monies.
But you're not commingling them, but you're showing them with the project they are applicable to. Perhaps separating these into two groups then would be appropriate. One that says bridge construction and one that says Blowing Springs construction, separating that one group that has two things in it into two groups.
Well, I wish you had brought this up earlier because I can't answer the question, but I can tell you Carrie's a CPA and she must be knowing what she's doing. If you want to talk to her later, that's fine, but we need to get this passed.
I'm not suggesting we withhold it. I'm suggesting for clarification that we need to identify if in fact those with parentheses notes after it for bridge construction are really bridge construction, and we should delineate it separately from, rather than commingling it in two projects. That's
Okay.
my suggestion.
All right.
I'm not suggesting we withhold this, Mayor. I'm only saying is that it's confusing the way it's presented.
Only to you.
I would suggest, if you don't mind, to give Carrie a call tomorrow. She'll be in and have a
I
chat.
will do that. I will do that.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Snow,
Yes.
carries.
Next resolution, awarding bid and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Pinnacle Emergency Vehicles in an amount not to exceed $150,000 for a remount of a 2013 4x4 Chief XL Braun ambulance for the fire department. We've been doing this now for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And we still have one more to go next year. For those of you that are watching, the reasoning behind this is if you buy a new ambulance, it's $240,000 roughly. However, if you do a remount, it's $150,000 and it essentially accomplishes the same thing. And this money is in the approved 2021 budget. Chief is here if you have any questions for him. Is there any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Who seconded?
Larry.
Larry.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Snow,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Next resolution, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with First Employment Staffing in an amount not to exceed $38,685 to provide personnel for seasonal right-of-way mowing for 2020. And we do this every year. We put out an RFP. Only one company ever bids on it. And it is our First Employment Staffing. This money is in the approved 2021 budget. Is there any discussion at all? Yes, Mr. Wells.
One thing, I had the opportunity to sit in on a webinar about employing retired military personnel in various activities, particularly focused in the public sector. And I would like to suggest that we add in next year's guidance that we would place a priority on a priority would be given to retired military with honorable discharge having comparable experiences in large farm equipment and similar physical labor abilities. There are some specifications that the city put out. If you read through the details, I think that came from the city. It looks like it did. I would like to see that expanded to include that provision next year.
Okay,
And I'll be talking with Glenda about that too.
Glenda's not the person. Talk to Mike Button.
Okay.
A motion to approve.
Second,
Zach,
Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes,
Wozniak,
yes,
Wilms,
yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
Next resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Superior Automotive Group of Asylum Springs pursuant to a state procurement contract for the purchase of a 2021 Chevrolet 4x4 pickup in an amount not to exceed $32,532.90 for the street department. And this too is in the approved budget. You do not have to go to bid because we're using a state procurement contract. Are there any questions?
motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Doug got the second.
Okay. Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Flynn,
yes,
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes,
Wilms,
yes.
carried 6-0.
Thank you. Next resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to.
Mr. Mayor,
oh geez.
there at the end of that information presentation, there's the schedule of vehicle replacement in there. I guess I would ask you to have department heads provide a little bit more information than saying high mileage, worn out, in terms of the rationale for wanting to dispose of it. Particularly what I'm asking for that would help us in that decision making is the year of the vehicle that they're, or equipment that they're planning to replace. Its mileage, and or if it's equipment, it would be equipment hours, and then a better definition of what worn out means. And that might be easily clarified by providing the history of vehicle maintenance costs without any costs on lube oil and filter, tires and brakes, because those are routine type things. But the other costs that are on the vehicle when they say it's worn out, age is not a reason for it being worn out. High mileage is not necessarily a reason, but it's the cost of ownership that is important.
Okay,
I think
anybody else agree they want to go into the weeds on this? Because we do have the information.
No,
I guess
it's,
the-
we
the
gotta trust the department heads on this. You know, we can't go
Yes.
nitpicking because you know how much I like nitpicking. You know, it just doesn't need to be done. If we can't trust our department heads, then we need a new department head.
I understand. I'm
It's
looking
just that
for.
simple. It's just that
I guess-
simple.
I think we owe it to our constituents to have a little better definition of what some of those meanings are in terms of our decision making. I'm not opposing the equipment that's to be purchased here. What my point is that we have a vehicle replacement schedule with a very minimal justification for it. And I'm looking to see more complete information on the real submittal that we get for it.
More busy work. That's all it is.
It isn't. It's fulfilling our responsibilities of seeing where our money gets spent.
Okay, we track each vehicle for their repairs, gas, oil and repairs, and Carrie has it down by VIN number. So we can get that for you if that's what you really want.
I'm only suggesting that in a replacement schedule, if they say it has high mileage, how many miles does it really have on it? What year is it? If it's a 1991 and it has 100,000 miles, well, age, if not one thing, but mileage is another thing. If it's high mileage and it's a piece of equipment that runs on hours rather than miles, then the number of hours of equipment use is appropriate. And they say it's worn out. It may be not much cost to own it, and it works really good. It's always reliable, and we don't put many dollars into it except the normal routine stuff of lube oil and filter, brakes and tires. That's not a worn out piece of equipment. So I'm looking for some better justification when we see schedules like this.
Okay, let's have a discussion about this at the work session, please, because I'm with Councilmember Wozniak. I'm not going to micromanage, the people that are running the departments. They do very well in their budgets and they know what they're doing, but we'll talk about it at the work session. All right, let me go on to the resolution and read it this time, please. Authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Superior Automotive of Asylum Springs pursuant to a state procurement contract for the purchase of a 2021 Chevrolet Police Pursuit Tahoe four-wheel drive in an amount not to exceed $37,000 for the police department. This has been approved in our 2021 budget. Chief is on the line if you have any questions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Snow,
Jerry?
Snow,
Yes. Yes.
Lynn,
Yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak. Wozniak.
Yes.
Okay, carried 6-0.
Okay, before I read the next two, which are approving appointments to the Planning Commission, I would like to extend my thanks to the two members that are coming off. One is Shaki Al-Madhoun and Chad Nall. Both have done terrific service for the community and for the Planning Commission. And neither one of them decided to put their names forward as part of our search. But nevertheless, they have given a lot of time and a lot of energy. And on behalf of all of us and the community, I thank them very much. So the first resolution is approving the mayor's appointment of Craig Honchel to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for position 2 with the term expiring March 1st, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. We'll call vote. Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Snow, Snow,
Yes.
Lynn,
yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
carried 6-0.
The next resolution approving the mayor's appointment of Susan Newell to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for position 3 with the term expiring on March the 1st, 2025. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you.
second,
Okay, Councilmember Snow.
I think you said snow.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Right. Lynn,
yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Burke.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you. The last resolution of the evening, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a 3-year, 11-month lease agreement with Vancon Properties LLC for property to be used as additional office space for the city. This is additional office space for Doug Tapp and his team. It's where Linden Jewelry used to be. Currently, the CDS offices are very full, have a lot of people, and social distancing is just not possible, as well as their desks are just almost on top of each other. So we're going to move into there. The cost is $1,200 a month. We do not have to ask you for a budget amendment. Doug has the money on hand in his current budget for both the other renovations and the lease from delayed hiring. And the reason why it's an odd lease agreement, 3 years and 11 months, that was at the request of Carrie, so it would tie in time-wise with the other leases that we have in that building with Vancon. Is there any discussion at all?
Mayor, question.
Yes, sir.
Has that ever been any discussion about, is that property for sale, and has the city ever looked at potentially buying it?
Yes, sir. I spoke with the landlord when we were thinking of putting the court in there, so that would have been around 2017. He's willing to sell it, but that's about as far as we went, Jerry, because we didn't have our 5-year plan approved yet by council. By that, I mean the 25%. That happened in May of 2018. So frankly, we haven't gone back and talked about it again. We've had a few hiccups at that building. We've had some water leaks, and I think we had an AC unit go out, Doug. And just recently, we had a burst pipe in CDS that did quite a bit of damage to the ladies' restroom, and it soaked the carpet in most of the offices. So Jerry, I would, if the thought being, yeah, maybe we should have a look at it, I think I would probably want somebody like Kraft and Tull to go through it. A number of years ago, I had Kraft and Tull go through the old Cooper property where the TV station is as a possible police station in City Hall. There were a lot of problems with the building, and so I made the decision not to entertain any kind of purchase on it as well. So I would want to do the same thing on this building that's owned by Vancon. It's not in the capital budget at all, so we'd have to look at that as well as to whatever the appraised value might be. But it's something we can pursue if that's what you'd like me to do. Any further discussion? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilmember Stoll,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes,
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Carried 6-0.
Meetings and announcements. The next city council work session will be Monday, March the 15th at 5:30 by Zoom. The next regular meeting of city council, Monday, March 22nd at 6:30 by Zoom. The planning commission work session will be February 25th at 4:30 by Zoom. The planning commission regular meeting will be March the 8th at 4:30 by Zoom. The board of zoning adjustment will be March 16th at 5:30 by Zoom. And the Board of Construction Appeals will be March the 9th, 2021 by Zoom. That ends the agenda. Yes, Mr. Wilms.
I have 2 points. One of them goes back to item A under new business. The resolution as we adopted it does not state in there the zoning that we're going from to. I had submitted an amendment on that, and I missed it when we went through it. It might be important to put in there. It's currently zoned R1 single family. You might want to make that correction. It's a
Well,
clerical thing.
Well,
second-
it's not, it's a little more than clerical. It's it's adding some words that weren't in there. It's an ordinance. It's already been adopted. So really what you'd have to do, Larry, is since you voted in favor of that ordinance, you could offer a motion to reconsider and then see if anyone else wants to pull that ordinance back for purposes to amend it.
Jason, in response to that, the title itself calls out from R1 single family to C2, but the actual language in section 1 doesn't say that.
I know, I wrote it that way. It just says that it's going to go to C2. So I mean, and certainly the council can determine what your ordinances say. That's up to you. So, but that would be, it's not a Scrivener's error is what I'm trying to say. It's not something
Okay.
you could just add without procedural hurdles being jumped.
And the second question is one of order, is did we vote on item F in new business? We had discussion on it and then it seemed to get lost from my notes.
I think we voted on everything, Larry. Let me see what F was.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did.
We
Yeah.
did vote. Okay.
Yes, we did.
Okay, anybody else? All righty, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.